Welcome to this week's episode of the Mindset Game podcast. I am absolutely thrilled and excited and grateful to have Moritz Ostwald all the way from Germany with us today. Moritz and I have a little bit of a history in the sense that we met back in 2014 through the International Coach Federation. They have a program for peer coaching, and I was lucky enough from all the people around the world to have a coach in Germany named Moritz. And Moritz has really, in many ways, changed the trajectory of my life. Not only was the coaching in those days very helpful for me, both personally and also professionally, as I was kind of taking my business to the next level. Moritz also introduced me to Tony Robbins and the business of transformation. And I attended, thanks to Moritz, an event because he's on his, still is on his leadership team, and as a senior leader. And I attended that event and saw thousands of people in front of my eyes being transformed. And I said, what is Tony Robbins doing? Mm-hmm. And I learned that it was NLP. And then I reached out to Moritz and kind of asked a little bit about NLP because he too is trained in that. And that just led to a whole series of blessings since then. And so I'm just really, from all my heart, very grateful for the many gifts that you've given to me and my clients.
Thank you so much.
And I want to share also a little bit about you. So since, or between 98 and 2010, you were a senior leader in the banking industry with a number of roles there. And since then, really been a serial entrepreneur in what we would nickname the transformation business, really helping many people, as you did for me, transform their lives and their businesses. And now you are the CEO and executive coach and trainer at Alpha Inspiration. And I saw on your LinkedIn profile kind of the nickname of relentlessly optimistic change agent, helping leaders flourish in this VUCA changing world. And I just love that because that's how I see you, as relentlessly optimistic. Every time I speak with you, I connect with you, there's just this warmth that's radiated from you, just a genuine, authentic love and deep desire for people to achieve their potential. So thank you for being with us today.
Wow, I'm speechless already. Thank you so much for having me, Moritz. And I didn't even know it was 6 years ago, but probably you did your research here when we first met. But definitely we met, not when, but what we did. And it was just a beautiful occasion of working together and see what's possible. And I'm so glad that it worked out for you like it did. And now you approached me a couple of weeks ago. Would you be willing to be on my podcast? What's the topic? It's mindset. Yes, of course. I love everything about mindset. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd love for you to kind of share with our listeners if there's anything else, kind of a little bit about you. But in addition to that, what does the word mindset mean to you? I know you do a lot of work in this field. What does it mean to you?
That's a good question, actually. What is mindset and what is not a mindset? Yeah? As you know, and probably most of your listeners, we know mindset is all the hype right now. Everybody is talking about a mindset, yeah? A growth mindset and a fixed mindset, or the infinite mindset, or the finite mindset, or whatever. We will maybe come to this during our time here today. But it's not that simple to just put it in one line. So for me, mindset is the foundation, the internal foundation, how I think about and then what kind of meaning I attach to the world. And if I choose to have, let me use this word, a growth mindset, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard about that. If I accept that I can change my world as I stay here right now and watch into this camera, talking to you, being in Germany, it's COVID thing, you are in the US, what kind of meaning do I attach to this? And if I agree that I can change my mindset, and if I can change my mindset, I can change my beliefs and my state and my anything, I can basically choose to learn everything I would like to do, and create my life as I want to have that one. And this is just like transformational. If there's one common theme for the last 20 years of my being in business, but also in the whole life, mindset is probably the most important thing because I had a totally fixed mindset for 25 years and with a lot of cost attached to it. So this is mindset is the number one skill we can learn if we choose to. We don't have to, but we can choose to. So this is why I'm so passionate and so grateful to dive deeper today with you on how can we work with that and what do we do with a good mindset. Yeah.
So, thank you. And tell us what was that mindset that you had for 25 years that you shifted? What was that about?
Yeah, without knowing the terminology and what even a mindset, there was no concept, at least not for me back then. But I grew up in a typical German family here, what you would today describe as a meritocracy, right? So it was very simple that I needed to perform in school and I needed to do this and that. And that was all good, but it was about like, I'm either good in one thing or I'm not. So I learned quickly I'm very good in sports and soccer and volleyball and stuff like that. And I was terrible in speaking languages, including my own mother tongue, German. Yeah. And I just learned it as if this is an inborn talent. Yeah. So I was good in this and not good there. I wasn't very creative. I was, as I said, terrible in languages. And I learned over years, this is how things are. I have my strengths. I can cope here, and the other things, nothing I can do about it. It's not that I didn't try to. Let me give you an example. I vividly imagine. I mean, my mother tongue German was okayish. I spoke it very well, of course, but in school I wasn't a good student anyway. But English, this very language we are using right now, I was like terrible, like really terrible. In German, we have a grading system. 1 is very, very good, and 6 is like completely not good, as it's like E or something like that. Is that possible? Like really bad. Yeah? Yes, and I was like a 5 minus, so absolutely terrible. I even did 1 extra year of school just because of my very bad, apparently bad, language skills. So I learned over years that I suck at speaking languages. Yeah. And then, oh, interesting, right? And I even chose my first employer. You mentioned I was in banking industry. That's right. I chose my first employer. This was Deutsche Bank. Yeah, Deutsche Bank. Back then, the largest bank in the world, and still Germany's top bank. And it has Deutsche in the name. Deutsche means German. So it's a German bank, Deutsche Bank. So I thought, even with my very terrible English skills, I could make it in a German bank who, of course, should speak German. And I know exactly how this was. It was August the 3rd, 1998, my very first day back in Hamburg. I'm a Hamburger, so this is how Hamburger looks. In Hamburg, my very first day of apprenticeship there. So I started with 30 other people eager to dive into how Deutsche Bank does it. And the CEO back then greeted us, and the third or fourth sentence, in German at least, was, well, we are proud of our culture and of our heritage and everything we created, and about that we are a global player. I said, okay. And of course, as a global player, our corporate language is English. I said, excuse me, what the fuck? No, I didn't think what the fuck. I said, what? Say it again. The German bank, was speaking English. So he told me on the very first day, I had complete false perceptions. So I needed to, at least then, and there are so many other stories, I needed to cope with the idea or challenge the idea. Am I really that bad? Is this just an inborn thing? I have nothing to do with it, learning English or anything else by that means. And it started to dawn at me, maybe I can change it. And maybe I can change to change my world. So this was one example. I was totally in my fixed mindset with many regards.
Wow. It's so cool to hear this story because, we met speaking English, and I never had any doubt in my mind that your English is A+. So, hearing this, it's kind of a reminder to everybody, that myself included, that if there's something in our life that we think we suck at, as you said, that, that might not be true. Maybe it just means that we need to release that and grow. So how do people do that? Let's say somebody has a belief, I can't do this, or, now with COVID, I'm limited in this way. What would you say to them? What can help them?
Yeah, first of all, to acknowledge that they feel it, this way. I can't change this and that because of, and then there comes a story. Realizing it is a story, nothing more, nothing less. They're serious stories. And if I keep telling myself I suck at speaking languages, then probably this will become my reality. If I change my story, it most likely will change my life. So this would be the first thing. And as long as I believe something is true, I don't want to put a political comment here right now because we're recording it just a couple of days after the big election, even in Germany. I'm talking about the youth election. As long as I believe somebody is good or bad, yeah, of course, I just seek the media coverage supporting my views. And if this is the thing, nothing will change, and that's okay. But if I want to change something badly in my life and still have a belief this is stopping me, as a coach, you would probably do the very same. I would just ask, is this really true? Are you really not capable of learning another language? Are you really not creative? Is it really true? And then, well, maybe there are a couple of examples already which are no longer in my current story, but I can change the story. And of course, we could talk about the mindset and the beliefs and the whole, you mentioned it, NLP, the neuroplasticity and all those things. There's plenty of evidence, and I just watched one of your first episodes on the mindset game. You're so right. Yeah? There's plenty of evidence that actually we can change almost anything, not exactly anything, but almost anything. And this is just this. It starts with my mindset, and then we can talk about beliefs, and then behaviors, and all the rest. Yeah.
So as you reflect back to on your life and all of the different kind of milestones of your life, what are some events that really stand out for you as transformative moments that changed your trajectory, just like you did for me? And what made it that way? Why are those sticking out for you in particular?
Yeah, in hindsight, and reflect, like I shared with you, I was not good at school, and many things I did not really master in the first approach, which in hindsight is the most normal thing. Now I have two beautiful daughters, and I try to teach them exactly that they just need to persevere and find their passion. But in hindsight, I can tell for myself it was one fear in particular, which I couldn't see back then, but now I can see it even more clear. And that is the fear of not being good enough. Yeah, I always had this fear of not being good enough. For my dad, for my mom, for the teachers, for my peers. And once I realized that, I needed to come up with a new strategy to overcompensate for those many years I literally sucked at so many things. And this was when I just really got into the complete opposite direction and worked so much I've never worked before. I never thought it was possible. So I overdid all those things. I overcompensated for what I back then felt is a fear I don't want to feel any longer. And I'm not, of course, advocating this is the right thing to do, but it was my story. So I learned the hard way, but then more and more, well, yeah, of course, if I change and I put a term you probably have shared with your listeners already, this deliberate practice defined by Anders Ericsson, maybe we dive deeper later. Deliberate practice into anything will get you nearer to your own mastery. So I learned it is possible to change. I can change. So I could have a career, even speaking English, right? Even living in Canada for a couple of years. It is possible. And that's something I don't want to miss in my life whatsoever, because without that, I couldn't stand here right now and just say, wow, the mindset is so important. It's not the only thing. There's a lot of more stuff. But without a proper mindset, I won't change. I couldn't adopt. You probably cannot. And most of our listeners will not succeed as they can if they understand that they can change their mindsets, like in an instant. Life is a choice. And you know that. Yeah, I like how Tony Robbins is saying that life is a choice. We can choose to have a growth mindset once we understand what that is and how we can get into it. Yeah, and that's basically so important. I can repeat it over and over again. Yeah.
Wow. And thank you for sharing kind of that fear, that belief, because I know that it's pretty universal. And a lot of people out there are really hard on themselves,
Right.
For not being, who they think they could or should be.
Yeah.
And what would you say to those people who right now are thinking what you used to think? What would you say to them right now?
Yeah. I would say, I think this is an American term, correct me if it is not, because I'm still not a native speaker, far from it. But I like this phrase, pick your fights. So understand where it is meaningful to intervene and to dive into. And what I mean by that is differentiate your inner game from your outer game. The outer game is this VUCA world, you said that before, is Corona, is how the election actually unfolds. I mean, you do have at least a vote. I don't. I couldn't vote, right? Still, I'm engaged somehow. But there's no sense for me to pick that fight that I completely, dive too much into how the American election will fold out to us here being in Germany, being German citizen. So is the outer game, and I cannot directly control my outer game as much as I want to. And yes, I'm an executive coach as well, and I think I can do so. I just can't. Accepting that. What I can do, and this is maybe the positive news here for all of us, my inner game, I am, if I choose to, in complete charge of. Of course, there's context, there's all kind of stuff, but only me and only you, Barrett, for your inner game, we are the architects of our lives. And if I define inner game, what mindset is a big part of it, of course, having a fixed or growth mindset, understanding that I can change my mindset, yes. Once I understand that, I will probably understand the idea of limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. So maybe I can put those beliefs into the center for a couple of weeks or months and understand what's helping me right now. And once I did that, I can maybe cover the values and my state, the state I am right now in, talking to you. I can choose my state. And if I know how, it's amazing. Once I did that, and then add deliberate practice to change those things I want to change because it's meaningful for me, just for me. And then I can change my world, right? And this is probably the best tip I can give. And in this order, not trying to train some tips and tricks while not believing in that. Probably you will succeed, but not as much as you would if you really think this is important for me because of something. You change your inner game. This will change your behavior. And by changing your behavior, you will change the world or your world gradually and more so. So this is the way I understand what I do in coaching, what I do in training, what I do with my colleagues at Alpha Inspiration. This is what we can do. Pick your fights. And I stop trying to pick the wrong fights, which I just cannot win. And I just too tough for me to just watch. I mean, I'm still invested, as you might feel. I lived in Canada for so long, and I've been to the US so often, and I would love to go back to the US. Right now, it's due to COVID, not a good idea. And yeah, but I can't change it. You guys have to do it.
Well, I really appreciate and acknowledge you for bringing up a couple of things there. The idea, as you said, of like picking your fight, because it does take energy to challenge something. Yeah. And we need to be mindful what's aligned with our goals and what's not, right? As you said, what's most meaningful.
Yes.
You even use the word values, right? Like what's more aligned with our values and whatnot. And the idea of the outer game and the inner game, because it is true that we cannot directly control the outer game, as you said. There might be things that we can do to influence, maybe, right? But all we truly have control of is in our inner game. And and I again appreciate that you brought up values, and I know there's a whole section, and I've got your book here that I yes, Me, My Best Self, and I Discover What You Really Want and How to Get It. And it's a fantastic book, and there's a whole section in there about values. And for those listeners that don't know what values are, how they shape their life, what can you say about that that's important for everyone to know?
Yeah. My values and my beliefs determine my whole life. I refer to it as my blueprint. Yeah. Very often I am not aware, and most of us, we are not aware of why we think what we think and why we do what we do. Yeah. And if you really want to understand why we have about approximately 30,000 decisions every single day, smaller ones and also more meaningful ones, it is based on our values and needs and our beliefs. Yeah. And those are, it may sound like esoteric for some listeners, but they are the fundamental building blocks of how we perceive this world and what we do. Why do I speak right now with this gesture? Yeah, well, probably because there's a blueprint inside of me, how I've learned to cope in any situation. And this is heavily dependent on what I value most. Yeah, and that's how fundamental the values are. Almost on a level like how fundamental the growth mindset or the fixed mindset is. Yeah. Because growth mindset, once you understand, yes, I can change almost anything in my life if I want to, then that would mean that I also can change my values and even my needs and certainly my beliefs. And if I buy into this, then the whole world becomes like an incredible playground of me relating to the people, to the whole world, to the whole universe indeed. And then I like that phrase, the sky basically is the limit. Once I understand there's so much things I can do, I can change. Once I understand this very simple concept of mindset and what is possible. So values, yeah, super important.
Thank you. And I'm curious, like what was it that triggered for you the shift, right? To leave the banking industry. You were very successful. What led to that?
Yeah, there are two answers for those. As I have pledged to be more open, more honest, and more vulnerable, let me give you both. Until a couple of years, I only gave one explanation, and that is still true. Yeah, but I give you both. The one trigger was that, like, I mean, I was going to Canada or relocating to Canada with my wife back then in 2010. And the one reason for 10 years, I was in the banking industry, global head of sales and marketing. So I was traveling to the US and Canada and many other places in the world quite often, but only for a couple of days. And my deep desire was to live abroad, to work there, to experience how is it. For some reason, I'm very much drawn to the US, to the culture, and Canada, that is. So I had two cities in my mind for 10 years. New York City, which I deeply love and everything there, and Toronto. Yeah. And it took me 10 years to convince my wife to join me. 10 years. And then she finally gave in. And lucky for me, 3 weeks being in Toronto, we chose to relocate to Toronto. She said this was the best time of her life. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. It's not only you did it for me, but we loved it. So this deep desire to change and transform and experience and enjoy life with everything there is. It was after 12 years in banking. So I stepped away, changed the country, the continent, the industry, and the whole profession. Yeah. And I wanted to not only talk about that or think about it, but do it. So this was one thing. And the other honest explanation is that within these 12 years, there were ups and downs, like in all of our lives. And as much as I like, and it's true when you said it was a very successful career, yes, but I also was so close in front of a burnout. I was like supposed to be how do you call that in English? The executive level just beneath the C level of a major German bank. And for 3 years, we worked towards it. In the end, somebody else got the ticket there. And I have been mobbed and like it's called mobbing. Yeah, it's like I have been stuff like that. And I felt myself as a victim there. And I didn't like it, of course. And everything came together that I think there's no longer a place for me. Plus the third thing, there was a deep yearning, and I couldn't explain it back then to you, that there must be more than just being for myself in this bank or any bank for that make. It even was the Bank of New York, funny enough, not only like New York City, but it was Bank of New York Mellon back then. And I couldn't see if is this everything for the next 30 years. So all this combined, the pressure and the yearning deep inside made me just to jump. And then we relocated. This was the thing. And it was the best thing happened in my whole life, in my professional life, at least, in hindsight. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing the truth of that. And I think a lot of people are perhaps, like I said, in that place now. Yeah. So they're in a job that, they're this close to burning out, and perhaps kind of like you had a situation where they worked towards something, and then that was, taken away, if you will. And it's a really hard place to be when you're in it, as you know. Um, and I imagine that you experienced a lot of kind of those stories in all the, Tony Robbins events that you've helped with and been at. And, what does one do when they feel like they're in that low place, but they don't yet know where they're going, right? What if they don't know yet what they want?
Right.
What can they do to start feeling better?
Yeah, I have a metaphor, maybe an image coming to my mind when I listen to you, Barrett. Probably you and most listeners are familiar with the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell, every Hollywood movie, every good book actually have the same blueprint, the hero's journey. So where we someone start, we being the hero, yeah, start in the known, and probably we are seeking an adventure, or there's an immediate threat or an issue. And at one time we decide, for whatever reason, we need to go to the unknown, so where we don't know exactly what to do and not to do. And for those people who are like maybe in a job right now and they're not completely satisfied, or they're asking themselves those big questions, they just don't know. Yeah, I have that. I mean, maybe positive message. You don't have to know everything. I mean, how boring would life be if you would be 100% certain what is going to come, right? And embracing this uncertainty and like almost embracing this fear inside of me that, oh, I'm no longer have 100% control of what is going to happen. In Zen Buddhism, we have a phrase for that, or not a phrase. It's a mindset in itself. It's called this not knowing. And who am I? Not knowing. Not I don't know, but not knowing. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what's happening next. I don't know what you're asking me. I don't know what your listeners will do right now when they listen to this podcast. And this faith, this ultimate faith into this not knowing, and something will open up. That's a huge thing. And if we stay into the metaphor, if this is a hero's journey, and there will be villains, there will be setbacks, there will be lots of challenges, there will be pain, probably suffering, all those things. And they are necessary for us to grow and to step up and eventually seek help. And maybe some people here who are listening can relate to that. I never accepted help in my life. I was so proud being adolescent to no longer need to ask anybody. I could do anything on my own. So I wanted to be the Terminator and the Superman in one person, not knowing it, but this was how we reacted. And I couldn't just ask somebody, could you please help me with that? Yeah, my ego wouldn't allow me. And of course, it's the most egoistic thing not to ask for help, which I didn't get that back then. But now I'm happy to let people help me. And this maybe is a message. There will be mentors and coaches and friends and spouses in your life. If you accept their help, they will help you. They want you to succeed. This is how life works from my perspective, at least. And yeah, this phase combined with seeking help and letting go of maybe false perceptions. This I can share to answer your question with everybody. Once I'm in a growth mindset and I'm on that journey, beautiful things will happen. Not all the time, but I accept those, and this gratefulness for being on the journey is just like 80% Pareto, right? 80% you're there. And the rest is deliberate practice.
Wow, well, that's a pretty amazing metaphor that I hadn't thought of. And I appreciate kind of you highlighting this not knowing, because so many of us, I mean, just the thought of uncertainty and not knowing is so deeply scary.
Right.
Especially when there are people in our lives that are counting on us. So if, let's say, I'm the financial supporter of my family, or something like that, it's a pretty scary place to be, to not know, because no one is guaranteeing that everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And yet, as you're saying, that is a part of the journey, is stepping into the unknown. And I imagine also there's a sense of vulnerability there, because if we're asking people for help, we got to admit that we need help. And And I know there's a lot of stuff out there on vulnerability and how to do that. How, if a client came to you and said, I want to be more vulnerable with my team, with my family, I want to ask for help. How do I do that? Because it's a scary place. What might you say to them?
Yeah, first admitting to yourself that you're just a human being and a soul. Yeah, yes, you are playing a role within your company, but as a human being, everybody wants to be authentic these days. I mean, thank God they want to. And then we left those 20 years old leadership principles behind us. But they asked me, yeah, I want to be authentic. I want to relate to my people. Yeah, all good. How can I show vulnerability? Yeah, when everybody asks from me to be the big vision leader, here's north, let's go, just follow me. Yeah, and then many also executives. I'm very grateful to support them and to be their sparring partner. They said this is a contradiction, and I would admit that on the first glance it seems like a contradiction. To be the visionary leader, yeah, this is what they are paid for, to lead people from A to B to reach any KPIs. Yeah, but the false perception, I think, and this is at least in Germany. I'm not so sure about the US right now, but probably you can relate to that. The false perception is that in the moment, me as a leader, if I show an honest vulnerability where I really am uncertain and I have anxieties myself, and I'm a little nervous here because of this podcast, maybe, whatever that is, if I show my vulnerability, the perception is that people, oh, this is a weak leader. I don't like Moritz because he is vulnerable. But that is the number one myth, probably. It's never true. People don't dismiss me or you or anybody else just because we every now and then show that we are real and honest and vulnerable and open. It's just the contrast. I don't know where this even comes from, maybe from Hollywood as well. Yeah, it's the opposite. If I every now and then just be completely, I mean, I'm always real, but if the realness means that I'm vulnerable right now, I'm naked, I'm really open and transparent. And I just don't know how COVID-19 will work out for all of us. I don't know whether in 1 year my company will still be around because of the change. I don't know. That gives you so much more credit and authenticity and respect, even respect, than what we think. We need to know all the answers. I know it. Just follow me. Yeah, I'm a good leader. It's just not true from my perspective. And that I would answer. Work on your perception on when to admit to yourself to be vulnerable. I am vulnerable because I am a human being next to all the other things I am. And why, if this is true, why can't I show this in my environment? And I understand between the modern working environment and the postmodern, the next step, there is a huge divide sometimes. It's not always appropriate to show this, but let me encourage everybody to play with that and just see if it's true what I said. Yeah, I don't think people will disrespect you just because you're open, honest, and vulnerable every now and then as a leader.
Wow, thank you. And I know the research validates every single word that you've just said, and I think you've just given a lot of people permission to do that. Yeah, and like you said, to explore it and see that it is okay, right? The only way to know that you're safe is to do it, and to experience it. And it's so interesting because we grow up with all these beliefs, these ways of being, like you said, where did that even come from, right? That we need to, portray that, to be a good leader. And yet when we look at the truth, and now the truth is coming out in the form of research, what do we know about leadership? And it squashes, some of these old thoughts and recommendations. And so I want to kind of end today with, if you'd be willing to share, if you were to have a conversation with a leader, and by leader, I don't just mean in the corporate world, leader in his or her family, in his or her community. And they said to you, Moritz, what is one thing that you can share with me in all of your experiences, your own life experiences, experiences with the clients at all these events, to help me live my best life. Yeah. To be my best self, as you wrote in the book. What would that be?
Great question. Let me buy some time to answer.
There's a lot in there. In your case, there's a lot in there. So.
I hate to say it, but it is the truth. It heavily depends on where this person asking me this question is right now in terms of his or her level of consciousness, experience, and all those. And depending on what I can sense at this time, I will give probably a different answer. So there's not one answer satisfying everybody. Probably the closest to the most universal answer I can share with you, where it is, and I relate back to where we started, to the mindset thing, to be curious, to have this curiosity, to remember how it was when I was a child, or you have been a child, what we loved doing back then. We played probably most of the time, most of us at least, and what we really deeply enjoyed. And if I'm curious to not only play, but if I understand learning is connected to playing, and every now and then I fail, and that's totally okay. I wouldn't have learned how to walk or to talk or to anything if I wouldn't have failed back then. But you know what? As a child, most of us, we have experienced growth mindset in its purest form, because we are all born with a growth mindset. The fixed mindset only kicks in once the grading stuff in the school system shows us we are limited and we are not enough and we are this and that. Yeah. So if you can reconnect to our inner child and be curious, willing to do the work, I'm always advocating you have to change. Yeah. I can open your door. You still have to walk through by yourself. And if this means you need to train and do the deliberate practice and everything where there's so much research on, we can talk for hours about how to do this. But the thing is, if you are just curious to experience this joy and this wowness in your world again, to do it. And you can basically do all of this one step at a time. And it all starts with your mindset. Do you believe this is possible? What I'm saying, do you believe it's possible? What you already shared on your podcast, read, and on the science and all those. If you believe this is true, just do it and experience what's happening. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Moritz. I'm just beyond grateful for your time, for your wisdom, for your vulnerability, for your love for all of us. So thank you. And I know our listeners would love to learn more about you and your incredible experience. And I know you're on LinkedIn and they can connect with you that way. I'm going to spell your name just so it's easier to find you. Moritz is Moritz or Z there in Canada. Being a Canadian, right? I know that. And Ostwald is the last name, Ostwald. So thank you again, Moritz. You're a good friend and you've been a wonderful mentor and colleague to me. And like I said, have inspired me in so many ways and continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Berit. And it was a really huge pleasure. And I'm not saying it lightly because this is the phrase how you end such a call, but it is because we are on this journey together. And to all those listeners here, this is so precious. It's your life and you're the architect of your life. Life is a choice. And with that, again, thank you for having me, Moritz, and all the best. Talk soon.